afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We are joined by Ina Smith of the Academy of Science of South Africa and the Director of Open Access Journals. My name is Kylie van Sale, and I'm just going to run through the order of business for you. First, I will introduce our speaker, then we will have the presentation, and Q&A will be happening at the end. But if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to pop those into the chat. Please keep your mics muted and your cameras off to assist in having no interruptions and helping those of us who are here with low bandwidth. Please note that the slides will be available and the whole webinar will be available on our YouTube channel as soon as possible, possibly even tomorrow. Right, thank you very, very much. It is my pleasure today to introduce Ina Smith of the Director of Open Access Journals. She is a Director of Open Access Journals Ambassador for Southern Africa, as well as the holder of a master's degree from the University of Pretoria in Computer Integrated Education, 2 degrees in Library and Information Science, as well as being the Planning Manager at the Academy of Science of South Africa. And she also has absolutely vast experience in open science and open access in our context. So please introduce yourselves in the chat, and Ina, take it away. Let me just stop sharing my screen and over to you.
Thanks, Kylie. If you hear any background noise, it's I'm sitting in the bar area of all places in the hotel. So because apparently it's where the Wi-Fi is best. I hope you can see my slides. Everyone, is it fine?
We can see your speaker notes as well.
Okay, let me
is fine with us. Yeah.
Let me just stop sharing and now still.
Unfortunately, now we can see you rather than your slides.
Let me try again. Okay.
Sorry.
Share and now.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Hope I can move it along. Okay, like this. Great. I've been looking forward to speak to AJOL journal editors for a long time. So thank you, Kylie, from the bottom of my heart for this great opportunity. My passion is working with African journals and with African fellow African organizations such as AJOL, who regard it as very important to make our research on the African continent more visible. So I'll be speaking to you. Kylie asked that I speak about DOAJ, what it is, how it works, and how it benefits journals. We want each and every African journal in AJOL to eventually also be included in the directory once they adhere to all the quality criteria. So what is the problem that we are experiencing today? African research, regardless of being one of the continents with the rich research and some very dating back many years, are invisible. We often publish locally important research, but it can remain under-discovered internationally. I want to take you back to the period to the year 2020 when we had the COVID outbreak. What happened was that publishers all over ended up opening up their research so that they could collaboratively benefit from research that have been done already. COVID research did exist, but it was not accessible for everybody. And Africa, for example, is an expert in HIV/AIDS, which is also a virus, and viruses behave in the same way. So based on that research, we could also provide input into how to deal with this virus, etc. So what happens in one part of the world also can have an impact on other parts of the world. We are all connected and we are all sharing one planet. We travel all the time. A virus can spread from Ebola, can spread from the Congo to anywhere in the world in no time. And then we sit with a crisis. There's no time then to find and identify quality journals containing quality research on how to deal with that outbreak. So visibility of our research is, in other words, very important. It's about being online in today's world. Not only the metadata, and I've put metadata in bold because metadata is becoming more and more important. So the metadata and the open full text articles. Research should be trusted, indexed, searchable, citable, and eventually be connected to global discovery systems. Of course, there's Web of Science and Scopus. They are the commercial systems. But then there's systems like the Directory of Open Access Journals that's inclusive. And regardless of the language in which you publish, the journal can apply for inclusion in the Directory of Open Access Journals to make it globally discoverable. If quality research articles in quality peer-review open access scholarly journals are more discoverable, African research can eventually get a voice. We can be heard. We can influence policy and decisions, solutions on both national and global level. I don't know about your presidents of your countries, of your respective African countries, but I know our South African president likes to base his decisions on science, and he's a great supporter of science, and therefore he would consult with the scientists and the research that has been conducted to inform policy and to come up with decisions. So this Directory of Open Access Journals can provide the place for you to make your journal not only visible in Africa, but also globally visible on top of what AJOL is already doing. DOAJ or DOAJ is a unique and extensive curated index, like a catalog of books. This is an index of quality peer-reviewed open access journals. So they need to adhere to certain criteria. When a journal applies to be indexed in DOAJ, our editorial team check whether the journal meets certain open access and transparency criteria applied globally. The journals are not perfect, but at least they adhere to some minimum criteria. Journals remain an important platform through which science dialogue can take place. We need journals, and we need quality journals that adhere to global criteria so we can communicate with and work together. DOAJ makes index journals and its article metadata even more easy to discover. And the mission of the DOAJ or DOAJ is to increase the visibility, accessibility, reputation, usage, and impact of open access scholarly research journals globally, regardless of the discipline, geography, or language. This is different from commercial databases. It contributes to the development of stronger, more transparent, and more sustainable African journals. We also support diversity, equitability, and inclusivity, or DEI in brief. While in Morocco, I had to present on the way DOAJ is inclusive in terms of language. What is it we do? So for those of you who are from Francophone countries, there are many ways the technology is advancing to translate when you engage, when you present with AI. And so while being here, I could present an inclusive presentation in the same way we need to publish inclusive journals, or in a way that they can be accessible for others, maybe using different languages. So DOAJ expands participation in knowledge. We want the whole world to collaborate with one another. It does not only index the already powerful or already visible journals. It's not about prestige for us. It's about knowledge sharing. It creates space for journals from Africa, from smaller publishers, from non-commercial platforms, and from different language communities to be found, trusted, and used within the global scholarly ecosystem. In this way, DOAJ helps make scholarly communication more inclusive, more diverse, and more equitable. So currently, we index journals from 92 languages. There are approximately 7,200 languages in total in the world. Approximately 2,000 to 3,000 of those languages, of all 7,000 languages, are spoken on the African continent, making Africa one of the continents with the most journals, 1/3. It comprises 1/3 of the total number of languages spoken in the world. But there's 38 languages, official languages on the continent, according to the UN, and English continues to dominate. But we want that to change. We want journals and articles in your local journals, local languages. 140 countries are represented from all over the world. And yes, we also work on promoting journals that do not charge any article processing fees or author page fees. And we also work with AJOL and DOAJ to advance journals, getting to this point where we know costs are longer involved for the journals themselves. In total, there are 23,061 journals indexed in DOAJ, and we encourage your journals to also deposit the metadata with DOAJ. And I'll share with you just now why this is so important. No journal exists in isolation. Your journal within AJOL, here you can see AJOL, and eventually included in DOAJ, is part of an open infrastructure that makes open access journal articles and journals discoverable, trusted, and reusable. I'm sure you have heard about, let's use RAW, for example. That is the unique ID for research organizations. I do not have a logo for org ID, but journals who have implemented org IDs, that's the researchers' unique IDs. So apart from your journal having a unique ISSN, authors have unique researchers' IDs. Research organizations have a unique research organization IDs, and articles have unique DOIs, or digital object identifiers. AJOL uses PKP, which is also well integrated as part of this scholarly ecosystem. And all these and more are interconnected because of the way they function. Ideally and eventually, should a journal included in AJOL and also being indexed in DOAJ be able to communicate with one another, with a journal in AJOL automatically depositing journal article metadata into DOAJ when a new issue is published. It is already possible because of plugins by PKP OJS. So in the software used to host your journals, there's a plugin that can automatically deposit the metadata in DOAJ. And if those systems are not aligned, there cannot be collaboration. There is also a new search engine, or not new, but many people do not know about it. It's called OpenAlex. And OpenAlex extracts the data from Crossref mainly, and then can track citations and see how journals are used and the impact journals have. So DOAJ is not a citation index. We don't track citations, but OpenAlex does that job, and OpenAlex is part of this infrastructure. AJOL and DOAJ or DOAJ complement one another. AJOL provides a major African platform for journal hosting, discovery, and visibility. Sometimes AJOL is the only website for the journal, but sometimes a journal can have a website of its own and being hosted by AJOL, which is perfectly fine. So in many cases, AJOL is often the first visibility layer for the current 950 journals hosted by AJOL. With regards to DOAJ, it can be the next global trust and discoverability layer for qualifying open access journals. Currently, as it stands, not all AJOL journals are included in DOAJ, and I will share with you later on. It's something you can work towards for your journal. The main differences between AJOL and DOAJ: AJOL is an African journal platform, while DOAJ is a global open access journal index, only containing the journal titles and the metadata of articles. AJOL increases the African visibility, while DOAJ mainly increases the international discoverability. But AJOL journals being online and on the World Wide Web also increases the international discoverability. AJOL hosts and showcases journals, while DOAJ assesses, evaluate open access journals and check whether they adhere with transparency criteria. The more transparent a journal is, the better. And the better we can distinguish a trusted journal from a predatory or questionable journals. Predatory and questionable journals are not transparent about around the fees they charge. AJOL Journal supports African research access and access specifically. DOAJ supports trust, metadata reuse, and indexing signals. So our emphasis is slightly different. AJOL has a strong regional identity, while they are working, I'm sure they are globally known, but on top of this, DOAJ provides global recognition across a global open access system. And it's often regarded as the first step towards global or international visibility and indexing. Journals, after they've succeeded being included in DOAJ, their next step would be to apply for inclusion in Scopus, and then finally Web of Science. But I don't want to talk about Scopus or Web of Science. My primary aim is to get African journals to first of all be included in DOAJ. We've grown tremendously. When I first started documenting journals from Africa in February 2022, we had 268 journals only. Since then, we've grown by 36%. And currently, we have, by April 2026, we had 840 journals from Africa. But there's many, many more journals that can potentially be included. And I'm now going to share with you the countries that are most well represented within the Directory of Open Access Journals. First of all, Egypt has the highest representation, and then South Africa. Nigeria is also well represented, and we've done a lot of work in Algeria, but because of challenges convincing researchers and editors that open access is the future, we still struggle to get editors in Algeria convinced, but we are constantly advocating, along with many African organizations. So recently, as part of the Omasi project, but also as an initiative so I can understand better which journals we can support, I did an analysis. And this is also from April, so please forgive me if the data is outdated since April, 2 months. Data changed very quickly. AJOL, if I'm correct, in total have 940 journals. Kylie, please correct me if I'm wrong at the end. I'm open to corrections. And then, unfortunately, often journals start with great enthusiasm and then they run out of capacity or funding, or they can no longer sustain themselves. So, according to the website where ceased or inactive journals are indicated on AJOL, I found the number in total to be 178, which leaves AJOL with 764 journals. It's a huge number, a lot of work going into the work AJOL does. 712 of those 764 are open access journals, and 269 of the 712 are diamond, which is great. So in other words, the remainder of the 764, 52 are closed access, which is not too much, but hopefully they will also convert open access eventually. In DOAJ, we currently have 840 journals from Africa open access, and there's 186 open access journals from AJOL that appear in DOAJ. It leaves us with 526 AJOL journal titles that can potentially be added to DOAJ once they adhere to all the quality criteria. And I'm sure AJOL as well as DOAJ are looking very much forward to work with you on this and support you. There's many more journals on Africa. The continent is huge. I've now learned that in Morocco, they are building an index of all journals. They're conducting an audit of journals in Francophone Africa. While I started with a little index with South African journals, Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Namibia, whether they're open or closed. I've conducted audits, and so far in total there's around 1,013, but as I learn more, I add to those indexes to get the bigger picture. Currently, DOAJ is targeting a few countries. So as I said, Algeria and Egypt and South Africa are green because we've invested a lot of effort and time in those countries already. We also have an ambassador, Professor Kamal Belhamel, in Algeria, a DOAJ ambassador. So he's working in Northern Africa and then the Middle East region. Egypt has a lot, as you've seen, and I think all the South African journals that can potentially appear on DOAJ are indexed by DOAJ. And the countries in red are the countries at war or where there are some conflict. So it's difficult to work with them. Although I've met now during this conference all representatives of all of them. So there's activity, but when a country is at war, all monies goes to war, and there's not much to spend on scholarly publishing or research or science. And actually, I should also color Morocco yellow and orange because the yellow and orange countries are where we are focusing on this year. So we're following a targeted approach. We conduct audits of what's going on in the country. And in February, we hosted a workshop in Kenya for 3 days on the scholarly publishing environment within Kenya. What are the policies impacting on scholarly publishing, copyright, data protection, and data privacy, and a research output? What are the policies? And based on those, we created journals on OJS 7.5 or 7.3. No, am I correct? What's the most recent version? Anyway, it doesn't matter, but the most recent version. And we taught them how to promote their journal using social media, how to compile a report, where to get statistics from, how to use the e-workflow behind OJS, which is incredibly powerful. And it was an extremely well-received workshop. We also did a workshop in Namibia last year, more or less the same, but we continue to support them and we don't just leave them out there in the cold. Also as part of my work at the Academy of Science of South Africa. So we would also like to host similar workshops in Tanzania. I believe AJOL has done a lot of training there, which is good. But we would also like to do some work in Ghana, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. So I need some updating on my map. Yeah, at the bottom you can see the countries we are focusing on. Eventually we will move to the smaller countries, but for this year I think the countries in orange and green and yellow will be our focus. In the Northern Africa region, I just want to highlight that there was also tremendous growth in Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia. When you group them with the Middle East and Northern African journals, MENA classification. So they experienced a growth of 45%. But they are also struggling because there's lots of conflict in Libya and Sudan where it comes to Africa. And then Western Sahara is disputed territory. They're still figuring out to whom it belongs. So many rejected African scholarly journals have potential. So journals often apply, but they're not ready yet. And so we want to reduce that and work with you before you apply for inclusion. Most of the problems are really because they lack clear practical guidance on how to align their websites, policies, and editorial practices with DOAJ expectations before applying. And as I said, we have ambassadors across the continent. I'm the community manager and senior ambassador for the whole of Africa. But we have an ambassador in Northern Africa, Professor Kamal Bahamel, as I've said. We have two ambassadors in Western Africa, Uluchi Okere and Angela Aikens. And currently, we do not have an ambassador in East or Middle Africa. And I also cover those regions along with Southern Africa. So the rejections of journals are often linked to missing, unclear or inconsistent information on the journal website, as I've said. We need to strengthen our journal transparency and trustworthiness. We also experience that editors not always know how to interpret the DOAJ criteria in practical terms. And they often operate within limited editorial and technical and policy support and training. The editors do this voluntary, or reviewers are most of the time voluntary. We found that often the editor covers the costs to run the journal from his or her own pocket. It's terrifying. That's why we should move to a system where organizations fund journals and no longer individuals. We want, as DOAJ ambassadors, to support your journal through identifying issues that need to be addressed, hosting workshops, webinars, or meetings, and move from application anxiety to readiness planning. And what we've now started doing is, when we receive a request for support, we would take your journal and we would evaluate it against our AI model. And then the AI model will highlight all the bugs and the shortcomings in your journal. And we will tell you how to go about to fix them. If you use OJS, even better, because that's the system I also know. So I've done assessments of some of the AJOL journals and some early observations, which I would like to point out and which we can work together to correct. With regards to the AJOL journals, sometimes the journal technical info might be lacking in small ways, or it's not up to date. And my understanding is that it is your role as editor to communicate changes to AJOL to apply to the website. Many journals have primary journal websites and a secondary website. So the primary website is usually the website that you host at your organization or institution. And the secondary website can then be the AJOL website. With regards to your primary journal website, many journals have the right intentions, but a weak website, and the transparency is not sufficient. You might not mention the editorial board members. DOAJ wants to know who's the managing editor, who's the editor-in-chief, who are the editorial board members. We want to know with which organizations they are affiliated. We want to know what are the emails. Eventually, we will go and check, are these people real? Because we don't want your journal to be labeled as a predatory journal. We need contact information for the journal, a physical office. Virtual offices are easy to create, but a physical address. Do you charge article page fees or not? If you don't charge APCs, say so on your journal website. Often the preservation information is incomplete. How is your journal preserved for the unforeseeable future? Do you make use of locks or clocks or portico, which are dark archives which cannot be accessed via the internet. It keeps your research safe. Policies are often present but scattered, incomplete, or inconsistent. So it might be that you say one thing on the AJOL website and something else on your primary website. If you change something on your primary website, please communicate it to AJOL. Licensing and copyright statements are frequent problem areas. So which kind of Creative Commons or other open license do you use? Who does the copyright belong to? Say it on your journal website. Peer review descriptions are often too vague. DOAJ only accept peer journals that apply proper peer review. It's insufficient to say that you apply double anonymous peer review. We want to know the whole process in detail. Where you have more than one website for the journals, this is my biggest challenge at this stage. The journal websites are mirrored but not aligned. So there are contradictions between the primary website and the secondary websites, for example, on AJOL. And often the information with third parties are outdated. So your journal might appear all over the web on different websites, have mentions everywhere, but the information is outdated. The editor from 10 years ago still appears on your journal website or on the third-party journal website. You've updated it on your primary website, but it's outdated on Sabinet, for example, or on AJOL. That's a huge problem, and that's going to prevent your journal from being included in DOAJ. There's also a lack of electronic or digital international serial standard numbers. Your journal needs a unique ID, and because it's online, it needs an EISSN, not only a PISSN. PISSN refers to print, the print copy, but the electronic copy is something completely different, and you need a new, unique EISSN for your journal. So where can you go and check whether your journal has a proper ISSN and whether your ISSN is valid? Go to the portal.issn.org, and there in that space, simply type in your ISSN. The registry will then tell you, is it a print ISSN or an EISSN? If it retrieves only a PISSN and your journal is online, you immediately need to contact your ISSN office in your country or contact ISSN directly. So very important. That's the first thing we check. It's the first quality check we do, whether your journal has an electronic ISSN. If not, we immediately reject your journal, and then you can only apply again in 6 months' time. To request an EISSN, go to this website, and there at the bottom, you can search for your country and see who's the country coordinator for your ISSNs. But on this website, there's also a direct contact for ISSN where you can ask. There's many criteria to which your journal needs to apply. And on this page, you can find all the criteria and some basic criteria only. Your journal needs to have a proper title in the language in which the journal is published. The journal title must be the same on AJOL, on other indexes where your journal is indexed, If you publish the journal in multiple languages, the title and the technical information about the journal and the articles preferably should be in both languages. If not, explain your language policy on your journal website. What is your open access policy? What is your copyright policy, your licensing policy, your preservation policy, just to name a few? And I'm now going to share with you a website which we assisted recently to show you the kind of policies we assisted them with. Once your journal is ready, what you need to do is to register an account with DOAJ with your contact details. Once you've registered, you can apply, log in and apply. And a profile is created for your journal, which must accompany your journal for the rest of its lifetime. Of course, many people use DOAJ in different ways. Journals use it to search, authors use it to find suitable journals to publish in. And funders, for example, use it to find journals in, for example, a specific research area to fund. Say, for example, IDRC has made funding available for journals publishing on climate change, and they want to issue a call for funding. They can come to DOAJ, identify which journals across the globe work in climate change, and issue a call for funding, invite them to apply for funding, because those are key issues we as every country is battling with. On that note, let me stop sharing and quickly switch to a journal which we recently set up, and you won't believe that it is actually an OJS journal, of which we customized the style sheet. So let me share again. This is just going to be a very quick share. So this journal was created using OJS, looking completely different from what it the template OJS journals look like. So you can be creative, give a unique identity to your journal. This one from Namibia, and they asked us, they want to revitalize this journal. The last time they published was in 2024, but they now have a new editorial board, and they're busy sorting out their ISSN. They've been using ISSNs which were not registered on the ISSN registry. So for now, it's just placeholders, and we've been in touch with a Namibian ISSN office to check what is going on so that we can update the ISSN. The publisher info must be clearly, the privacy statement, the contact, the sitemap needs to be registered with Google, Google Search Console, so that Google can pick up and find your journal and metadata. The contact information must be clear and very visible for end users, how to submit a manuscript from here or view the current issue. And then I just want to show you, this is the homepage, the current issue. As I've mentioned, you can see here it's from 2024. And it's not customization of the code. The look and feel is because of a style sheet, which is very simple to use. So ideally, you should then be able to click on this journal title, and ideally the org ID for each author should appear. The DOAJs should be active. Currently, this journal's DOAJs are not active. So your DOAJs should always be active. You need to have keywords, an abstract, and preferably the references of an individual article should also be displayed so that it can be harvested and extracted by bots and search engines, etc. I know bots are a huge problem at this stage, but anyway, elements like the PDF, minimum PDF, but also if you have XML or the HTML versions, you can also add it for the journal, date published, how to cite the journal, the issue, the section the article appears in, the copyright license, the Creative Commons license, and with a link to that license. This is a very transparent setup. So there's all the archival versions of this journal, the search option to search the journal, they're there, announcements, and they now integrate it with the announcement by the hosting organization, which is the National Commission on Research, Science and Technology. Information for authors, author fees. Let me just click there and I'll show you. It says there, they do not currently charge article processing charges, any submission fees, editorial fees, or any other fees. It supports the Diamond Open Access business model. Editorial decisions are made independently of financial considerations. Where there's money, there can potentially be corruption and questionable journal practices. That's why African journals prefer Diamond Open Access. If they introduce any fees, it will be announced ahead of time. So be very transparent. Submissions, how do the submissions work? You need to log in to make a submission, and they have a whole list of items the article need to adhere to. There's all the guidelines, how to use citations, how many words, etc. So it should be complete. And then there's all the guidelines, which take in directly into that section. Then there's the policies, and you can, you're most welcome to go and look to this website to see what must an open access policy look like. What are the DOAJ requirements? Because when I assisted them, it was with keeping the DOAJ requirements in mind. Copyright policy, licensing policy, peer review policy. Look at it. It's not just the one sentence. It's a whole description. What criteria are used when reviewers review the journal? Publication ethics. How do you deal with AI, artificial intelligence policy? Are authors allowed to use it? And how are they allowed to use it? Data sharing policy, preprints, corrections, persistent identifiers policy, and metadata policy. And then a link to the publisher, and then also information about the journal itself. Important information that would go on the About page, or info about the ISSNs, the background and history of the journal. When did it start? When did it go online? When did it go open access? DOAJ wants to know, when did your journal go open access and started implementing a Creative Commons license? What's the focus and scope of your journal? Who is the title owner and publisher? The journal host, in this case, it's the African Platform for Open Scholarship, which still needs to fix the link. Open access model, these things still need to be added once they are fully operational again. What's the language of submission and publication? English, and specifically British. Frequency will still be added, and the technical infrastructure. they indicate they publish in line with best practices. They include DOAJ, ORC IDs, ROR IDs, Creative Commons licenses, and they use PKP-OJS software. They make use of the NCRST prefix, and they've even added a link to the journal metadata health on the Crossref website. And then they have a disclaimer that to protect the journal themselves. Also under About is the editorial team. As I've said, clearly indicate who's the chief editor, editor-in-chief, or whatever you call this person. Who are the deputy chief editors? You might have assistant editors, call them differently. Who is the editorial members of the editorial board? So there's org IDs with links to their email addresses. If you hover your mouse there, there's a link to the org ID, and this is the institution, so that we can check at DOAJ that they are real people and they exist and they work in the field. They are experts in the field of this journal. This is the contact person with all their details. And lastly, DOAJ also allows you to add a privacy statement. We've seen it somewhere else as well. So please, colleagues, you're most welcome to ask questions. Kylie, are you around? I do not hear you.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm just having a small technical issue.
You're unmuted now.
I can
Yes,
take over.
yes, I can hear you now.
Thank you. Right. I'm sorry to interrupt everybody. Right, we have some questions. They are to do with personalized application advice from the DOAJ. Because we're pressed for time, I'm not going to read them out in full, but there are two editors who are querying how their journal gets more specific guidance with their application to the DOAJ, especially given that most of our journals are very understaffed, and the 6-month waiting period between a unsuccessful application and the next application can be quite frustrating. Is there a way for journals to access specific guidance, specific one-on-one help for their application?
Yes, Kylie, there is. They can contact the ambassador for the region or contact me at ina@doaj.org, putting it in the chat. So please reach out to me and I can refer you to your journal, to your regional ambassador, and we can run a pre-assessment for you, and then we can to highlight for you what are the things that are lacking. Do you miss an open access journal statement? And we only want serious applications. Of course, we scan the journal, we see whether it can be trusted, and then we put it through the AI model, and then we reply to the editor as to how they can improve the journal for possible inclusion before it goes through the formal, official DOAJ evaluation process.
Thank you very, very much. Dominic and Emma, could you please put your questions into the chat? Owing to some time constraints, I cannot unmute. Also, I don't think it'll let me unmute. Further questions are, does the DOAJ accept both CC BY and CC attribution and CC attribution non-commercial? It is quite flexible.
Yes, we accept all 6 Creative Commons licenses, as long as you apply it consistently in your journal and you indicate it as part of the metadata and also on the full text article itself, and provided that your policy on your licensing is clear and transparent. So we check for those things. But you're welcome to use any CC license.
And another quick question in that vein is, does the DOAJ accept journals in multilingual publications?
Yes, absolutely. The journal can publish content in 2 or 3 different languages. Once again, your policy, your language policy must be very clear.
And a final question, because we are creeping up on the time limits. Final of 2. How do we qualify to get support with website setup? This might be a more general.
Yes, we don't do one-on-one trainings, but I don't know from which country you are. We preferably do group training. So typically, if you can, like I've said, we follow a targeted approach, as in Kenya. During our Kenya training, we helped journals. We trained them on using OJS and how to set up their journal and how to take articles through the editorial workflow. But I think AJOL also assists with the AJOL part, not with the primary website part, maybe. But yes, we can do training on national level, or as long as there's a good number of participants. It's not worthwhile our time and costs and efforts to just train one journal. So we prefer to do it in larger groups. Face-to-face, in-person training, always the best, preferred. But I've trained many journals virtually from South African journals virtually. So I've never even met the editors, but we've done online training. I've set the journals up for them, and and from there I taught them how to manage the journals. But there must be journals in your country. It depends in which country you are, but I think we need to come together as countries, work together, form interest groups, collaborate and learn from one another, train one another, and talk to one another. And yes, that's basically my answer.
Fantastic. And we're squeaking in with a last question. Well, two last questions. They just keep coming. Can journals appeal if there was an error in the assessment?
Yes, of course. There's an appeal process on the DOAJ website. So just go to doaj.org, and where you have a frequently asked questions, you can definitely appeal. I also want to encourage you colleagues. DOAJ is focusing on African journals, making them a priority. It was part of a strategy last year, and we continue that strategy this year. So please contact us to do the pre-assessment for you before you apply. But if there's still a problem, you're welcome to submit an appeal.
And thank you so much. That takes us to the end of our available time today. Further questions? I encourage those with questions I haven't answered to either check the DOAJ website or the email Ina at the email address pinned in the. I will say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for finally coming to do our AJOL webinar, Ina. We are extremely grateful. As didn't age light, there are still questions coming. Everybody to the FAQ on the DOAJ website. Ina, thank you so much. We will let you have the rest of your afternoon now.
Thank you
so much, everybody.
Thank you, Kylie. Thank you for the audience. It was great to present to you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.